There are things in this universe, this world, that may seem strange, mysterious, bizarre. And trying to understand some of these things often takes a lot of science, a lot of research, and a lot of time. One of the things that seems to be outside our comprehension is the existence of extra dimensions, the concept of multiple worlds in other realms. Now, one would think that these other worlds would be almost impossible to get to, but for some reason, these worlds are easily accessible. This access, in many cases, comes in the form of what I would describe as a sort of spiritual travel, such as astral projection. Now, portals, gateways, this is what we are going to take a look at. What exactly is a portal? What are the mechanics? Where can they take you? Let's take a trip around the world and see if we can discover if there truly are openings or portals into other worlds. And let's see if we can figure out who or what is going through them. Astral projection, the effects of DMT, remote viewing, channeling. These can be considered methods of spiritual dimensional travel. That's not what I am going to discuss here. I want to talk about gateways, but because these things do involve energy, psychics and others have been known to be quite sensitive to these gateways. Now, recently, I discussed the reptilian alien race. And when it comes to stargates or portals, there is a connection. There is a connection between the white-skinned, blonde-hair, blue or green-eyed people that came among the ancient natives of many civilizations that were suspected of having advanced technologies beyond our understanding. The reptilians and the tall whites, these two otherworldly races, share a connection. The connection is antediluvian, which is a term meaning before the deluge, or a time before the great flood. When you think about that, think about this. All these ancient civilizations, the Egyptians, the Mayans, the Aztecs, the Incas, and many others have the same old story. They were a humble people, a simple civilization, and then one day these beings, reptilian or tall white bearded men, came here from some other world. They came in ships, and they came bringing with them incredible technologies that were given to the natives. As a condition of this, most of these ancient civilizations were taught by these beings to worship serpents, and they were also taught to worship the sun. The agenda with these alien beings, one can speculate, is absolutely Luciferian in nature, as every single one of those civilizations is gone. Why? Because every one of them were influenced into performing rituals, blood sacrifices, in the name of the sun and snake. Every one of these civilizations descended into darkness and then was ultimately destroyed. It is the same story over and over again, and it will happen again. The dragon and the sun will be worshipped again. This is Amarumuru, the Gate of the Gods. It is one of the leftovers from the Incas. It is located in Peru on Lake Titicaca, near Bolivia. This measures a little over 23 feet tall with a doorway that is about 6 feet 6 inches. Now, it is said that this is a legitimate stargate or interdimensional portal to only God knows where. Some say it takes you anywhere on the planet, into space, underground. It can even take you out of your body. They say entities come and go through this thing. However, it seems no one really knows how to make it work, which is the case for most of these sites. Many of these sites, such as the Gate of the Sun, right next door in Tiwanaku, Bolivia, are built in locations that match energy vortices. This is why in these particular areas you have an abundance of paranormal activity of all sorts. Also, these two sites line up, along with other sites like them in the area. So there is an old Incan legend, one that I think might actually be true, about Amaru Muru. See, Amaru Muru was a priest, Lord Meru of the Temple of Seven Rays, from guess where? Lemuria, or Mu, the sunken civilization of the Pacific. He was one of the 7 great masters of Lemuria. And what happened was, there was a great flood, and Lemuria sunk. But Amaru Meru somehow escaped destruction, taking with him a sacred golden disc, along with a few other artifacts to Peru, becoming the Incans' messiah. They loved this guy. He gave them leadership, advanced technology. Described as a tall white man with golden hair, he showed them many things, and how to build the marvelous structures we see there, the pyramids, the Pyramid of the Sun. You see, he also taught them how to worship serpents and worship the sun god. Sound familiar? So we have the Egyptians all the way over there and the Incans all the way over there. And they somehow coincidentally managed to worship the exact same gods. Well, they're not exactly the same. No, they're the same. And they just happened to build pyramids too, right? No, see, these are the same damn entities that came down to take women in Enoch's time. They're the same entities that came down and built Sumeria. They're the same entities that built and ruled Babylon. The same entities that built and ruled ancient Egypt. The same entities that came to Peru. And every time, they created a civilization of giants and naked sun-bathing snake lovers that had succumbed to bloodlust, magic, and ritual sacrifice. And where are they all today? Gone. Well, for the most part anyway. Folks, if it is not apparent to you at this point that these sun and dragon gods are running around pulling the same bag of tricks on every civilization that became an empire at some point, you have to take a step back and look at everything. And they are going to try it again, whatever they are. And they are probably going to come in a form that we don't recognize right away. And so therefore, people are going to take the bait. They are going to bite down hard. And you and I are going to need to recognize what is happening all around us. So these stone structures around the world that mark off energy vortices, I believe, are exactly that, energy vortex markers. If the structure is said to be active, what that means is there have been recent reports of paranormal activity in that area. You know, UFO sightings, orbs, electromagnetic disturbances with equipment, strange sounds, and then every once in a while, on an occasion, someone will report someone missing, a disappearance. Now, of course, if any legend describes a structure as a stargate or a portal, you can bet that it is also a ritual ground. Stonehenge is a good example of this. I recommend looking into the story of Merlin and the Giant's Ring. It is an interesting story that some believe may be true. In short, it was a monument built to honor the British soldiers that were murdered by the Saxons. It was Merlin the magician's idea to use massive stones brought by a giant from Africa, and his magic powers to erect Stonehenge, which back then would have been a more impressive sight to behold. Now folks, understand, and many of you may already know, that these places, this one in particular, gets regular visitors of all sorts. And when many of these people go there, They, of course, try to take advantage of its high energetic spiritual atmosphere. Keep in mind that a lot of bodies have been found there, of people not from just one place, but from all over. So whether this is a cemetery or ancient dumping ground for sacrificed bodies, it is another UFO and paranormal hotspot. Now, many of these sites, such as the Serpent Mound in Ohio, you can't really see what it is up close. You need a bird's eye view, which indicates that it was probably built for their gods to see. A marker, with the head of the serpent pointing towards, you guessed it, the sun on the horizon. Now, they haven't found evidence to suggest human sacrifice, but we all know what happened last time people tried to worship the sun through snakes. Remember, this is known to be the largest and oldest mound in the world, which should tell you something. They think it may date back to the time of Aristotle in 321 BCE. There are high traces of iridium in the earthwork, and yes, they get their strange floating lights in the sky too. Which brings us to the 7 gates of Osiris in the temple of Amun in Egypt. They say this is a place where the soul can exit the body. There is a large electromagnetic field inside the temple where many go to, of course, meditate and explore the astral plane. Now, Mount Shasta is quite special, as it is said that this volcano is the current home of the surviving Lemurian race of people, and Telos is their underground city. It is another UFO hotspot, entrance into the hollow earth. It's got Bigfoot and the little people. There is invisible animals, and there is even a city floating above the mountain called the Crystal City of Light of the 7 Rays. Hopefully at this point you're starting to see the big picture here, folks. Hoia Baciu Forest, Romania. This place is strange, and believe it or not, wouldn't you know it has something to do with Atlantis? Legend has it that Transylvania was the center of Atlantis, and they created a timeless zone, a place where they could travel to any time or any place in the universe or planet. It is said anyone in the forest can fall asleep and wake up in another place or time, or in another section of the forest. There are stories of people experiencing headaches, anxiety, and vomiting, as well as burns from entering the forest. There is an area of the forest that has a high magnetic field with twisted trees so hard that they can barely be cut. Oh yeah, and this forest is teeming with entities from only God knows where. So almost every one of these sites around the world comes with legends of these Atlantean or Lemurian beings, not to mention visitors from the heavens. No matter what site it is almost a guarantee that there have been UFO sightings. Not much can be said about people using these locations as exit portals into some other realm, but it seems these locations are good entrance portals for beings from other worlds. Now, the majority of these sites have regular tourists. Most of the time, nothing strange happens, but people definitely do feel the energy in these places. If any of these sites were actually dimensional stargates, you can't expect a rundown, broken, weathered, pieces are missing. You can't expect that machine to still work. But if you somehow figured out how the gate works, then maybe you could use the technology. So here we are in 2018, the age of digitally operated machinery, along with an impressive collection of knowledge from thousands of years of history. Are we truly capable of opening portals with state-of-the-art technology? If we have the tech knowledge of the ancients to assist us, not to mention the assistance and knowledge coming from non-human entities. You could build a super Stargate. But see, people assume they know how something like that works from what they've seen in movies, particularly the movie Stargate. And now people are actually claiming to see the same Stargate from the movie in images from Mars and Antarctica. What happens is people get stuck on this idea that a Stargate is something you have to actually walk through. The reality of it is more like trying to make two worlds overlap each other. But in order to do that, you have to first cut into or dissect matter. You can use a knife to cut into physical objects of a certain size, even lasers for microsurgery, but you need something way more precise and way more powerful if you want to cut into and dissect a subatomic particle. Folks, anytime you have a revelation of truth in a matter such as CERN, you will have 100% of the time things put in place by the bad guys to confuse you and keep you running around in circles. They have mastered this concept at CERN. They've had 60 plus years to set this up and set you up. Do you see? Their staff is completely compartmentalized. If you work for CERN, you don't know everybody that works there. That's reality. Not only that, you don't have the time to worry about what project they're working on next door when you're working on your own project. Ladies and gentlemen, understand and know that opening portals is nothing compared to what they are really trying to do at CERN. That's just a consequential bonus. What they are really trying to do. How many of you have ever seen Star Trek: The Next Generation? You know that food replicating machine? That's it. That's CERN. Bad example? Well, let me try to explain this quickly. Let's say you have an apple. Now you look at that apple and you wonder, what's inside the apple? So you take a knife and cut it open. Now you can see inside of the apple. The seeds, the core, the juices, the color. And then you wonder, well, what is the inside of this apple made of? So you put it up under a microscope, and now you can see the cell structure and fibers. You can use a variety of chemical analysis to test its composition of elements, and beyond that, it's going to get expensive. But you don't stop there. You want to observe those molecules and the atomic structure. You want to map it out. But then you look at the apple as a whole, and even though you know what the apple is made of, you want to see what's holding that apple together. Now, in order to do that, you have to cut into one of these subatomic particles, which means you need a particle accelerator. So you can smash two particles into each other. That's the only way you're going to cut into those particles and open them up to see what's inside. What comes out of this as a result is antimatter. It is antimatter because it is unstable. Everything that we can see and interact with is stable matter. What CERN wants to do is they want to find antimatter in its raw original form. They call it the God particle, yes? Why? Because if they find this particle and harness its power, they can take that unstable antimatter and turn it into stable matter. They would literally have the power to create matter out of nothing. This is the beginnings of a matter printer, and that has applications we have yet to imagine. This is the ultimate goal here. I've said this before. This thing about them opening up portals to bring in the Antichrist or whatever, although it may have some bearings, it is something that they want you to occupy your time with. Opening doors to other worlds? No, they are trying to make other worlds, folks. So we've got a lot to talk about. I want to get into more about the history and legends behind some of these technologies that these other beings supposedly possess. And for that, we'll have to go to a couple of places that, according to legends, were sunken thousands of years ago. Are you ready?